It's election day. We only have a couple of hours left to go to the end of voting, and the Labour Party are breaking the rules again. Yes, this was the Labour Party in Tower Hamlets, and allegedly in other parts of the country, they got caught this time once again breaking the electoral law. We have basic law when it comes to elections. Every year, every time there's an election, on election day, you're not allowed to go outside polling stations and actually try to intimidate voters or persuade voters or change their minds or bribe them or giving them leaflets outside polling stations. It's not legal. Yet, the Labour Party, particularly, especially in Tower Hamlet, have not learned their lessons. And there's a historic problem in certain parts of the country, and we saw some examples in Peterborough in recent elections. But today, which is a big day, it's not a general election day, but in a sort of midterm elections, there are a number of big votes going on in Scotland with the SNP, in London with Sadiq Khan, and again, there are a number of elections going around the country. This is a big issue that we're currently facing. These footage that we found, one of them was actually filmed by David Bull from the Reform UK party, and he's actually standing for London for the London Assembly. There's a weird thing that's going on. Every single time one of these things happen, whether it's the Labour activists outside polling stations giving out leaflets, whether it's postal votes, somehow weird things happen to them in Peterborough, in Tower Hamlets, and other parts as well. Usually it happens either in Labour heartlands or marginal seats that are leaning towards Labour. Really coincidental, but this has happened, and actually earlier on, VoteWatch interviewed David Bull on this issue, as obviously he posted the video on Twitter, and he was talking about how he said every polling stations we've been to, there have been people campaigning outside, handing out leaflets and telling people who to vote for, and they're incredibly blatant about it. And he said that they even approach people queuing up to vote, telling them who to vote for and which box to put their cross in. It's wrong and it's got to change. And of course, David Bull is standing for the Reform Party and Reform UK, and one of the agenda is to actually reform the electoral system and the problems that we have, whether it's postal voting and other parts of the elections that we have. There is a weird situation right now because the mainstream media, who tend to be on top of things all the time, all the major stories, are not anywhere to be seen. And also the Electoral Commission, where are they? They've been tweeting things saying all areas are being monitored and everything's fine. There are no issues in elections. Everything's clean. And if there's a problem, let us know. We will address it. Okay, we saw what happened in Peterborough. You didn't really address it properly. There was no outcome in that sense. But thank God for David Bull and others who were there to find the actual evidence and tweet about it. Now, VoteWatch actually talked about this postal votes that have been long used by Britain's ballot burglars to undermine democracy and commit vote fraud. A fine example being in Peterborough, where a former Labour mayor and 3 of his campaigners were sent to prison for postal vote fraud, following an investigation that cost the taxpayer over £800,000. This is the sad part. First, they cause trouble. Then, when we have to go after them, we have to use a lot of taxpayers' money for these investigations to hopefully catch them, and then something happens. But then, afterwards, they don't learn. They continue. They repeat the same things the next election and the one after, and then in the future. One of the key people involved in this chaos was Tariq Mahmood, who still continues to campaign for the Labour Party, and he's pictured below, as you can see. The guy is still there because Jeremy Corbyn is still there, and people who allow these campaigners, so-called campaigners or criminals, to be in the Labour Party. And then when there is a tiny scandal, a tiny person saying something weird or odd or politically incorrect within the Tories or Reform UK or any other party that's not left-wing, these people go completely on top of it. The mainstream media will say, well, we have a scandal on the political right. What about this guy? What about Tariq Mahmood? Why is the media not scrutinizing this guy who's still campaigning for the Labour Party? Now, another suspicious win for Labour was Lisa Forbes, who became the MP for Peterborough in 2019, and she only won the vote by 683, tiny margin. And into Mahmoud's activities, that they discovered that the CCTV footage from the polling station was actually used by Tariq Mahmoud on election day. It was mysteriously erased. No footage, no evidence. Now, this discovery was made after numerous residents claimed that Mahmoud had attempted to coerce them into handing over their postal votes. Now, Vote Watch later revealed that the polling station in question was operated by an organization of which Tariq Mahmoud himself was a senior member. So many coincidences. What is happening here? Well, again, this is funny, but not funny. It's funny only because it's dark comedy, it's dark humor. Why is it that the establishment, whether it's the Electoral Commission, corrupt, whether it's the mainstream media, complacent, whether it's all the others who are supposed to be on top of this, they ignore, they cover up, and nothing actually changes? Some are intentional, of course, and some are just because of incompetence that we have in the establishment. I'm not going to randomly accuse anyone for doing anything on purpose in that sense. We need evidence, of course. But the complacency is obvious within the establishment, and this is the problem we currently have. Now, David Ball also said today that we are clear about what we stand for as Reform UK. It's there in the party's name. There are some things in Britain that work well, and some that don't. Our electoral system in one such area is one such area that's failing. For instance, today I went to vote. I didn't have to show any ID to vote, to actually prove that I can vote. And but that's the thing. There's this problem, and he actually says that we need voter ID. At the very least, you should prove that you are who you say you are. Now, a lot of people don't know that you can actually go to a polling station on election day, and you don't really need to carry your polling card. All you have to do is just go on the list, check the list, and say, that's my address and that's my name. I live there. Now, there's nothing to stop a neighbor who hates you, and for example, they want to vote for a different party. They go in, they vote for their own party, then they go back out, they go back in, and they know your name and your address, and they know that you vote for a different party, and they could just pretend to be you. No one can stop it, because we don't really check people's identities. This is a really, really bad problem. If you're not going to have voter ID, at least make it mandatory for people to have their own polling card. Like, it's not really rocket science. There's a big problem right now with the lack of voter ID. There's a postal vote problem. And Labour activists outside polling stations still try to bribe or intimidate voters, or try to persuade them, let's just say, last minute to change their mind and vote for the Labour Party. This is bad. This is scandalous, and it should really change. I just wanted to make this video last minute. We only have a couple of hours, less than a couple of hours left to go to the end of today's election day. We're going to find out what's going to happen. I'm going to be on this channel to give you the latest updates on Scottish elections, the London mayoral elections, and everything else that we have. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to stay up to date, make sure to click on the notification bell next to it and click on all, not personalized. Otherwise, you won't be notified by YouTube, because we're having some problems thanks to this site. So make sure to subscribe on my ITC, and I'll see you guys in the next video.